Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 10 quarterfinals and semifinals recap. We're a little bit late on this one, so we're going to do both in one. My name is IllLogic. I'm coach of the Buffalo Bouffalants, and joining me as always is Steve, coach of the Waterdeep Wobbuffets.
I'm here.
All right, as the 2 and 3 seeds, you may expect us to face off in the semifinals. We are heavily invested, of course, all throughout all of these matches, but we'll kind of have to see what happens. With that said, we're going to go into the quarterfinals. If you remember from last video, we're going to start off with the number 1 Newport Noctales versus the Close Combat Club, and we're going to tell you all about what happened here. Alright, so on the first turn, we had Neufern against Manectric. Didn't get the roll on Draco turn 1, and then crit by the Volt Switch to Scarfers right away in the Manectric Neufern. I always see that Jimmy actually brought the Electric Surge this time. John found his Electric's answer in the Exeggutor behind Reflect. Draco Meteor does 80% to Decidueye, who roosts up. It's a defensive Decidueye. Were they listening again? Kind of sounds like it. Roosts all out the -2 Eggy. Teleports him Manectric, but Shadow Sneak was packed and it can't take advantage of the terrain. Exeggutor could take out the Decidueye right away, back with another Draco. Neufern then taking advantage of the Registeel, that was his answer by tricking the Scarf onto an immediately. Great play there. Forces Machamp with an AV as the intermediary before getting a Toxic onto the Pincurchin, but another great read from the Noctowl to get Blaziken in on it, and Registeel gets sacrificed, but not before Blaziken actually runs Defog to get rid of Rocks. Kind of a clutch play there, really nice. Machamp takes a second flying move from Neufern to KO it, but then it gets revenged by the Raichu. Berserker in the back the whole time, though, with Machamp gone as the Porygon answer. Eggy heals a couple times from Citrus, those Harvests keeping it stupid healthy, but it was just a matter of time before Raichu came in again. A clutch U-turn from the Berserker near the end to bring in Raichu one more time seals the 3-0 victory for the Noctowls, who will move on to the semifinals. Steve, this was actually a pretty fun battle at the beginning, but as I said, kind of felt like only a matter of time before Raichu took over at the end, yeah?
Oh yeah. You mentioned the early game, the Scarf play, and I really liked the way Jimmy handled it. You know, having defeated Manectric, the key Scarfer early, and maintaining that speed advantage, at that point realizes the Scarf isn't really needed at Neuvern anymore. Predicts a Registeel switch in and tricks at the Scarf. A fantastic play there. Another thing on John's side with the Machamp, sends out the Machamp on the Neuvern, which ends up taking an Air Slash, and then kind of switches around for a couple turns before later sending out the Machamp to revenge kill the Neuvern. Probably should have just stayed in there on the Neuvern at first and, got the KO right then. Perhaps save the Registeel in the process, but, how the rest of the game would have played out is, of course, a mystery at this point.
Absolutely. It was kind of interesting to see the AV Machamp on there. We know he's been favoring Guts on it, so it was an answer. But if there was an answer, why not just stay in and claim the KO? Porygon also didn't seem to have a Scarf, I think. Jimmy was kind of able to realize that it wasn't quite the Scarfer that he thought it may be, and was able to play around that pretty well. So another pretty decisive victory from Noctowls. That will end the season of the Close Combat Club after their round of 12 win. What do you think about the Combat Club? A little up and down this season, yeah?
Oh yeah, they've had some big wins, some big losses. Big highlights, of course. Any team that can manage to defeat the esteemed Bouffalant, that's big win for them. And, John being able to do that with a surprise Trick Room team that he used to great effectiveness. I've really liked seeing the Trick Room from him. With the Xatu and Exeggutor Lola both teleport passing and allowing the Machamp to really abuse it. That's been great to see. Machamp started out real strong, hitting things harder, though. It kind of, a lot of his team members really fell off at the end as people became more aware of them. Manectric early was huge with the Scarf, coming in and just wrecking havoc. But again, as time went on, people were more prepared for the Manectric, and it also fell off. Porygon Z, a little bit of a disappointment. Big Mon never really got that marquee performance it was looking for to really cement its worthiness here. All in all, though, good team. Exeggutor coming out at the end, doing great there. Jellicent coming a lot as a key defensive piece, although notably missing from this most recent match. Wishy-Washy, only coming once, and in that one game kind of getting hacked out and not doing anything. But all in all, a well-rounded team was able to do some really cool things with it, and just fell a little short.
Yeah, we saw a mid-season transaction as well. Would have been very fun to see the Shelmet come more, but I understand it's a 20-point mon. Comfey coming in pretty well for him as well. Just seemed to get more comfortable with some of the team members, and the other ones felt a little predictable. So that ends up with the quarterfinals loss for John and the club. Next, we're going to move on to another classic matchup. The 2v7 that we previewed last time is the Wobbuffets versus the Agrons. And here we go. Escavalier is the answer to Thwacky all day, even better with no burn from the Flame Body, but Scorching Sands will hit the Piloswine switch in as well. The early Slurpuff with no Grassy Seed reveals that it may be a defensive set, but Iron Head is still the answer. It's still just going to KO the Excelgor that comes in. And then the Cryogonal 2 is Joey's just seems to be sacking mons for, well, I guess he got the rocks away. There's the Turtonator that Steve mentioned last time. An Explosion Licky is the solution this time. Very cool, very impressive set. Stone Edge Archeops has no switch-ins left on Joey's entire team, especially with no Sandslash present there. Takes out Joey's entire team, including the Firebird. Then Virizion can just sit in front of the Slurpuff, which we've already revealed to be rather defensive, with 2 Swords Dances, and then the Weakness Policy activation, which easily cleans up the last 2 KOs in a very, very clean 5-0 victory for the Wobbuffets. There were a couple ones that didn't do much of anything, but very clean. Didn't seem to need them very much at all. It seems like you have Joey's number.
Oh, yeah, that does certainly seem to be the case. Turn 1, you mentioned Escavalier being a great switch in Thwacky, which he is in general. However, I was predicting anything else, probably a U-turn was what I was thinking there. If I had guessed he was doing knockoff, I would have rather got Virizion in there, got that free attack boost, although it would have cost me my weakness policy. And at that point, given his team, there's not much that could switch into Virizion, and it would be doing quite good. I might have been scared out by the Slurpuff, although upon not seeing a seed pop when it came in, I might pick up on that and kind of tear through the team with even less loss. But even so, only losing Licky to myself as a way to prevent Turtonator from doing anything extreme. Overall, very, very well.
Yeah, I like how we have kind of the Escavalier Virizion offense pieces, which are really only checked by the fire types, which of course Chandelure can kind of check a little bit defensively, and we know Archeops checked it defensively a little bit last time too, with a very strong Stone Edge, so just a well-constructed team it seems like for Joey in particular. No Sharpedo makes a little bit of sense because of the Thwacky coming would have been another nice answer to fire types, but it sure seems like Archeops had that on lockdown anyways, and again, didn't even need the Chandelure in the back. Would have been nice to see a few more KOs on the KO leader there, but that's how it flies. So that's going to be an end to the Aggron season as well, finishing in the number 7 spot. A little bit up and down for Joey too, though ended a lot stronger than it began.
Oh yeah. And I mean, the key to Joey's season has been whether or not this Slurpuff does something. Offensively, he's brought it both special and usually special, but I think there was at least one time he brought it physical. On those times, it seemed to be more of a win more mon. It never seemed to turn the battle in his favor. It was always, I'm up and I'm able to get Slurpuff in, and it does well. Defensively, it didn't seem to work too well for him. Also never saw webs from it, so lots of room. The things could have been better for the number 1 overall pick, but that might have just been a conflict between Slurpuff and Joey's playstyle. Of course, the mons on Joey's side that did do well, the Thwacky and the Sandslash. Thwacky, of course, kind of being the breakout member, setting the terrain. After week 1, the league being inconsistent, this shouldn't be 20 points. The bulk it brings to the Aviolite, the priority with Grassy Glide, the terrain able to help its team, fantastic. Sandslash having a couple huge weeks, able to boost up its speed with Rapid Spin, set up a Swords Dance if needed for extra power, and just rip through a couple teams. Really strong mons there. For the Agron's 100-point mons, the other 2, Moltres and Bronzong, both kind of had lackluster seasons. Bronzong only coming 5 times, Moltres coming 6 with only 1 KO. Neither of which having really the performance that you would hope for with a 100-point mon. The rest of Joey's team, lots of spinners, varying success throughout them, but, kind of a step back and a little bit lull of a season for Joey's usual regular season dominance.
There were a couple interesting pieces. Excelgor, really cool, especially offensively, but didn't really get the spikes usage. Hitmontop, kind of useful utility, but didn't really get any fantastic predictions off that could have let it really shine. A bit of a mixed bag for sure, and we'll see if maybe with an expanded mon pool next time Joey will be able to get something that fits his style a little better. I think he may have hit the nail on the head there too. So we got another absolutely classic matchup for the 3 versus 6 Bouffalant and Steamrollers. Here we go. Finally get to go over one of my own matches of turn 1 Volt Switch into the Drotagon instead of Blizzard. Maybe looking a little bit predictable, so much so Klotzer gets paralyzed by the glare immediately. A couple of R spheres on the keys bring it really low, but light screen is up, so a nice little flip turn switch on the Glow King lets Guzzlord come in early, knock the Drotagon low, though Drotagon does get up the rocks and stays alive when Klotzer finally gets fully paralyzed. Steelix able to come in, take advantage by getting its own rocks up too before taking down the dragon. Glow King's invested in special attack, able to take down that Klotzer finally, then trades a little bit with Guzzlord before going down itself. Klefki gets up the Reflect Key before going down to Guzzlord as well. Guzzlord is an absolute menace, but Glaceon stops that in its tracks. Rotom trades most of its health to stop the Glaceon, then gets Moltres to about a third before going down, but Agility and Berserk are activated. Chad just needs a couple rolls to go his way, and he gets out of the 2v4. He sure does. High roll on the Aerodactyl, hits the Air Slash on Pissimian with Reflect finally down. Steelix can KO with Body Press, but gets flinched as well and goes down too. It's the first upset of the playoffs. I know I'm upset, as your Bouffalant just cannot beat the Steamrollers, who grab the 2-0 victory in the quarterfinals. Wow, it was 4v2, looked relatively in control, but hey, it's Moltres Galar, Agility, Berserk, and Go Burr. What do you think?
Oh yeah, Moltres Galar. I mean, we've seen a lot of success from it, both in this league and the Beginners League. And I know both in the Smogon metagames, it's also seeing rising usage. So we're definitely going to look at re-tiering that. But great Mon. You mentioned, that turn 1 Volt Switch on the Drotagon. Chad, just saying, yeah, I'm just going to stay in and use Glare, which if, the Rotom had gone for Blizzard there, Glare wouldn't have done anything to the electric type. Huge damage from the Blizzard, if not a KO. That would have been a huge swing there, but just getting the prediction right on that turn. And then you mentioned the RNG, sometimes it, RNG just doesn't go your way, and that can result in season-ending losses.
Absolutely. You could potentially say in hindsight, hey, maybe Guzzlord or the AV Klotzer should have been a little healthier to deal with the Moltres, but hey, I did the math. You can check out my video, which should be up shortly after this one as well. It looks like it basically came down to a couple of coin flips, right? A couple of 1 and 2 chances for the Aerodactyl to survive, for the Steelix to survive, and neither one did. That's how the cookie crumbles, and hey, Chad's a very good coach, put himself in a position to get into this position in the first place. Just very much calculated and say, hey, Moltres is the win condition, and here's how it can go. But that's it for the Bouffalant, and number 3 seed losing in the quarterfinals. A lot of high expectations for the team, but I'd like to think this was still an okay season, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an okay season. Working there as one, the top team, securing that first round bye. Looking at the Mons throughout, Aerodactyl, that first pick, brought 9 times, but really didn't have the impact that maybe you were hoping for. Only getting 7 KOs. Definitely a presence felt when the opponent was team building, but was never able to take charge of a match and really stack up KOs and effectiveness like some other top tier Mons were. No real stars on your team. We made a joke earlier that your team probably has the number 11 through 17 in the kill leaderboard, but none in the top 10, just because the KOs are so spread out. No real team member standing out. A lot of the low tier Mons had their 1 or 2 matches to shine. Guzzlord did well against me. I know Klotzer had some good games early on. Marowak had a game where it popped off. All of them, having 1 or 2 good games, and that's it. The other high tier Mons, Tentacruel, brought only 5 times, and it wasn't too effective in them. Mesprit didn't really do much. Lots of options there. A lot of unrealized potential, possibly. Pissimian did all right. Steelix, of course, a key defensive piece and probably the most consistent member of the team. But all in all, just a lot of potential, it feels, that wasn't tapped into, and just inconsistency in what things were bringing. Lots of options, but not able to use them all. Yeah. What are your thoughts on your season?
There were a lot of things that felt okay. Definitely the Steelix was, I think, the most consistent performer. There were, again, so many different options, a lot of cool stuff that did pan out, a lot of cool stuff that really didn't. Would have been nice to maybe get those 1 or 2 more matches in, but definitely agree with the Aerodactyl as well. Kind of surprising that whenever I first picked the Steelix, kind of felt like it and Aerodactyl overlapped a bit, but Aero didn't perform quite as well, and Steelix I thought overperformed, so kind of interesting there. Guzzlord, the KO leader, cannot give enough love to Guzzlord. We'll see maybe whenever we get back to a higher tier season if we end up performing a little bit better, but hey, 3rd overall and then making the first round bye, still not that bad at all. Of course, we'll be doing a full recap on my channel later if you want to check that out. Shameless plugging. But with 1 upset out of the way, can we get another? It's going to be the 4v5, the Burbs versus the Psyducks. Here we go with the last quarterfinals match. Is Shuckle finally punished? The building does a ton of damage and only loses its Shuckaberry in return. It gets rocks up 2, but Sandslash gets the spin-off in front of a Scalding Mantine. No burn. Mantine versus Vaporeon. We predicted it last time that that's going to be a recurring matchup. Rocks up against the Burbs again, and Vaporeon gets Toxic. It doesn't have to wait a way to hit the Mantine, who actually misses another follow-up Toxic into the Amara. Is able to set up the Aurora Veil on the switch into Duraludon, which Raichu tanks like a champ and hits a Focus Blast like a champ to get the first KO of the match. The Psyducks do a lot of really nice creative switching to stall out Hail Turns and the Aurora Veil to try and get a crack at the Raichu, eventually getting in Salazzle for basically free and KOing the Rodent. Really nice plays here, just switching around and taking advantage of the position that the Burbs had put themselves in. Vaporeon still doesn't have Toxic, but it does have Heal Bell as the two sit in front of each other yet again. Sandslash gets in for another spin, which lets it outspeed the Salazzle and KO with Earthquake basically for free, which is a super big deal. The Vaporeon Sandslash core putting in a ton of work, and then creatively going into Shuckle on the Wish instead of Sandslash to get that back up healthy, which baited in the presumably Fire Fang Bolton and lets Webs finally go up. Mantine defogs them away, but finally Toxic onto the Mantine. It's a defog web stall war until Leafeon comes into Heal Bell. Just as we predicted, that Mantine Leafeon core potentially coming in clutch there. And Claydol comes in, and you know what time that is? Substitute on the Charizard. Ice Beam does not break the sub, and Charizard belly drums up with the Salac Berry and Sticky Webs up. That's not an easy thing to out ever, and Acrobatics able to do easy cleanup duty for the final 4 KOs of the 5-0 victory. Charizard belly drum sweep in the quarterfinals. What will Michael pull out next? Impressive.
Oh, yeah. I very much enjoyed seeing the Charizard. I know he had talked to me about it ahead of the match. He was looking for its opportunity the whole game. Definitely noted that Claydol was an easy opportunity for it to set up and go to town. And, once he got the opportunity, it sure did. You mentioned kind of Zach's pivoting, and I kind of wanted to highlight there kind of in the mid-game. Able to get Claydol in on a predicted electric move, and then Salazzle in on the grass move to hit Claydol. Fantastic pivoting, able to threaten out the Raichu, as well as stall out the Aurora Veil turns. But yeah, overall, a very strong performance from the Burbs here, able to get the Charizard at the end and just take away the game.
Hey, you know how much I love to rag on the Claydol, but it does also seem like a little bit of a failing not to get the Leafeon in there a little bit earlier. We mentioned how it could have paired with Mantine very well as a kind of defensive core back and forth there. It didn't really get in until it was a little too late and gave Charizard that opening to really exploit the team of the Psyducks. Speaking of which, the Psyduck season is over. They started off a very strong 4-0 and just seems to have fallen apart since then.
Yes, yeah, very, very strong start. Perhaps just going up, getting some RNG early and against some weaker teams, but still, no shame there in getting that huge start. And they kind of fell off later on. The high tiers for the team, tier 100s, not really putting in the work that Zach would be hoping for. Duraludon only brought 5 times with 1 KO for such a threatening mon with that massive 120 special attack and the fantastic Steel Dragon typing, doing very little. Salazzle, a great Pokemon with a fantastic speed, especially in this low-tier format. Never able to really take charge of a match. Brought 8 times, only getting 4 KOs. Didn't really see Corrosion come in all that much, if at all. The offensive sets really didn't do much. Picking up KOs here and there, but, a little bit of a letdown, in my opinion, from Salazzle. Mantine, of course, did well. A fantastic defensive piece. Brought frequently. I know frequently was kind of overstressed in the matchups, having to counter various of the opponent threats. Could have maybe used a little bit of help there. I know I'll mention it so you don't have to. Claydol coming 8 times, 0 KOs, especially here kind of at the end of the season, serving as a setup fodder. I know you very much enjoy ragging on Claydol. Outside of that, in the low tiers, Rapidash Galar, of course, going 12-2, being brought 5 times. Coming off of the backs of 2 Calm Mind Sweeps, a mon that was able to put in a lot of work, but it kind of had to be in a good position to start. But again, did well. Scrafty, one of the tier 80s, only brought 5 times, 3 KOs, never really able to get that going. Gliscopod had a fantastic match in the middle of the season, but in general, did all right, especially for a 60 tier mon. But yeah, in general, the team no one really stood out as kind of the mod that Zach could depend on offensively. Mantine, of course, defensively was always the answer, but there was never that offensive counterpart to really fall back on.
Yeah, that seems to kind of be a theme overall here, is that for all of these teams, it seems like there was something at 100 points that just didn't quite pull its weight, or you couldn't really rely on it to carry the way that you wanted your top-tier mon to be able to do. Of course, these are not true top-tier mons in the sense that we only had tier 100s and below, but it still seems to be a bit of a shortcoming there, or potentially having other teams being able to rely on their mid-tier mons just a little bit more and be able to put the team on their back. So with all this said, we have concluded the quarterfinals. That means we've got the 1v6 Noctels and Steamrollers, as well as the 2v4 Wobbuffets and Burbs, considering reseeding. The top remaining seed and the last remaining seed do face off. So with the semifinals coming up, let's just go ahead and jump into it. As we said previously, we were a little bit late on these, so we get to go over these matches as well in this video, get it all done at once. And yes, we've got, again, the Noctel Steamrollers. This was the finals rematch between the two teams from Season 8, just the very last season that was on this channel. Met up in the finals with the Noctels taking that one. Are they going to be able to take it again? They also matched up in the regular season with the Noctels taking a close victory there too. So what exactly looks good here in the preview of this matchup? Well, if we're looking at Chad's team, you have to know that fire and fighting coverage is just incredible against him, so that Blaziken looks outstanding. The base 80 speed, just amazing against Chad. Looking at all the different typings that hits super effectively just with those moves, not to mention the potential coverage it gets too. Noivern looks real nice too. Flying doesn't have many resists, along with maybe a flamethrower, and of course Draco Meteor for Dredagon looks amazing. Could also potentially have a Scarf again on this one to help outspeed the Arctivish. I know a certain someone brought a Scarf Aerodactyl in the last match up against him to try to outspeed the Arctivish, so that's definitely a possibility there too. Decidueye looks like a little bit of a mixed bag, honestly. Outspeeds quite a few mons, but also kind of gets hit hard by a lot of the ice coverage and other things like that. Klefki, not a particularly great matchup for it either. The Moltres could potentially just absolutely ruin it. So a little bit here or there, not really sure on that. The Lapras, really nice answer for Arctivish. Feels like it has to come as the water absorb mon for such an important threat. Aromatisse, really nice answer for the Moltres Galar. It seems like this is all sort of limiting a little bit of what his answers are, but you already know that the Electric Terrain duo can come because it has 0 immunities. That's right, no electric immunities from Chad, despite a couple of potential grass types and maybe special defense walls. Something like Moltres still weak to electric, so not 100% sure there. For Chad, of course, you kind of have to think about Gloking and Dredagon as electric, almost resist. Gloking isn't a resist, but with an Assault Vest can easily turn into one. Dredagon looks pretty nice as an answer there too. Cinccino actually looks quite nice. Overall outspeeds most of the opponent's team, and looks like Tail Slap is pretty free aside from the Ghost type and the Mudsdale, though Mudsdale, of course, has put in an absolute ton of work. You also have to consider that Lapras is really the only great sturdy ice resist, and of course the water resist for Arctivish, so the ice type's really not looking too bad there. I told Chad ahead of time Abomasnow actually looks pretty nice with its speed tier, able to outspeed things like Mudsdale and Pincurchin, and of course the Lapras can hit with the Grass Stab, so Abomasnow looking pretty nice there too. Under Hail, Arctivish doesn't outspeed the Electric Terrain Raichu, so that's actually really interesting that we have something that can double its speed going up against something that can double its speed. So Chad actually does not have the advantage on that one, showing, hey, maybe the Surge Surfer's overkill, maybe it's not. Maybe you need all that speed on Raichu plus Surge Surfer to get it up that far, which is kind of funny there. It would require a lot of prediction skill with the Arctivish should he choose to bring that. And of course, Dark and Flying coverage looks overall amazing from the Moltres. Again, just an easy answer to the Decidueye potentially too. Hazard's game, pretty interesting. We know Chad's been favoring the Dredagon a lot more recently, and every time he's brought it, it's been Stealth Rocks. Exact same goes for Noctel, except Mudsdale's been there the entire season. Every time it comes, it has rocks, and he seems to be prioritizing it too. I do want to give a special shout out to the defoggers. Noivern, pretty easy defogs as well, but the Klefki really too. Look at how many mons are grounded on the side of the Noctels, 10 out of 11. Those spikes actually could come up and be very relevant potentially too if he decides to bring those spikes. So that's kind of an overall look at the Noctel Steamrollers. Does anything else stand out to you, Steve, before we hop into the semifinals match between the 1 and 6 seeds?
Yeah, I'm going to keep bringing it up, and hopefully that shows up. Calyrex, get a little bit more baby lettuce. Of course, Calyrex going up against Mudsdale the horse would be good. It'd be exciting to see the new form, Calyrex Ground Rider. But But yeah, that's all I got here.
I think there's a lot of potential with that. Psychic Ground. I think I know of a couple other like ground types that are pretty good. Actually, no, I don't. We're going to move then into the battle itself, and let's see what happened in this very exciting semifinals match. Here we go. We've got early Stealth Rocks from both sides. Aromatisse able to absolutely tank a Fiery Wrath, almost single damage, but Chad able to find a way back into Moltres after a nice little double switch and tries heading up a little bit. Goes for a flinch on the Aromatisse to get up below half, but Trick Room Aromatisse. He's brought the Trick Room. Is this the Trick House? Klefki is the 100% stop to that, but Pincurchin is next with a light screen. Moltres takes 22% from Rising Voltage. Oh my goodness, that's insane. That's so super effective Rising Voltage. That's absolutely insane. Lapras then tanks the Fiery Wrath and roars out the bird as Arctofish isn't something that needs to be stopped because Chad didn't end up bringing it. Abomasnow is the answer, but misses the KO with Woodhammer, and then Body Press crits through the Reflect to KO the Abomasnow. Absolutely tragic. Cinccino is next, and oh no, Doc, you cannot tail slap when Mudsdale is around. Moltres in for free on the surprise EQ, but Body Press after another Fiery Wrath gets no flinch, brings down the Moltres, serves him right. Glow-King comes in to take down the Lapras, and then, surprise, outspeeds the Mudsdale too. That's some speed investment on the Glow-King, and gets another KO on the Mudsdale, just enough after the Fiery Wrath. Exchanges hits with Pincurchin, and then hits Blaziken down to a quarter two. Earthquake hits the Drotagon hard, but Life Orb recoil is very important for Chad to see, very important. And then Drotagon takes out the sacrificial Aromatisse, though then goes down to a Psyshock from Raichu. Light Screen is up from Klefki again as Pincurchin comes back in. Clutch switch into Cinccino on the swap into the Pincurchin recover that forces the Noctows to sack Blaziken and then to sack Pincurchin for one last ride with Electric Terrain. Can he clutch out the 1v3? Cinccino goes on to Rising Voltage. Only 23% done to Glow-King behind the Light Screen, though that's an AV for sure. And Sludge Wave doesn't KO, but it does get the poison. Sack the Klefki and Raichu's down to 1% left. Can a crit save him at 60% left and the ability to crit? It would, but no crit means Glow-King picks up the final KO and secures the Steamrollers, the 6th seed, a spot in the finals. This was a roller coaster of a match. Wow, this was an absolute blast. Honestly, one of the best matches of the season, in my opinion. What did you see go down?
Yeah, this was a great match. One thing I really want to bring highlight to is on turn 19 after the Mudsdale got hit by that tail slap, +5 defense, opting to go for Earthquake instead of Body Press on the switch. Body Press in general is fantastic against everything with the exception, of course, of the Glow-King. I guess predicting the Glow-King there, although based on later in the game, he expected outspeed, so he could have, of course, always hit it with Body Press for chip and then Earthquake for the KO. So I think Body Press was probably the right move there. Would have picked up the Moltres Galar KO and kept Mudsdale a little healthier in the mid-game. But, yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Chad played that fantastically, really using the Klefki and the screens quite well and able to mitigate the potential damage that Noctows were able to do. And I think the screenplay was very important in his win here.
Absolutely. One more thing I do want to bring up with the tail slap, too. We know Mudsdale was obviously the switch into tail slap. Once it went down, I thought that was outstanding identification by Chad to be able to bring in the Cinccino 2 times after the Mudsdale went down. Seeing how free Cinccino's tail slap looks, the physically defensive Lapras was down, the physically defensive Mudsdale was down. Tail slap able to really come in and do a lot of work, along with the Glow-King really chipping everything down, as it kind of has all season, either been a setup sweeper once or twice, but otherwise really chipping everything down, regenerating back up. Glow-King has been an absolute menace. And finally, Cinccino coming in to put in that work too. So just overall great performance from Chad. Everything putting in a little bit of work to take down the menace that were the Newport Noctows that had only lost before this one time in the regular season, and that was without an Electric Surge mod that he had meant to bring. What do you think about the number 1 seed Noctows getting knocked out in the semifinals?
The Noctowls, had a fantastic season. Of course, exiting the playoffs earlier than many would have suspected, but their season, of course, is not one to be ashamed of. Fantastic work from their team as a whole. Noivern, a key defensive piece, really not as offensive as it could have been, but, it did what it needed to. Decidueye, the other tier 100, not being brought a ton, only 6 times, and Decidueye was very hit or miss. There were a couple times it was brought and it saved the game, and a couple times it was brought and it did nothing. The Electric Terrain, of course, one of the key features of his team, fantastic. Brought very often in the Raichu Alola, taking charge of lots of games, pivoting in throughout the Electric Terrain turns and really decimating their foes. Mudsdale, another key member for the team, being able to just be there forever, it seemed, even after being KO'd, which it did 7 out of the 9 times it was brought, getting a lot of post-mortem KOs with rocks that it was always bringing. A great Mon, very, very good defensive piece here. The low-tier Mons, in general, they all had their moments to shine in individual matchups. I know when he brought the Berserker against me, it was fantastic to prevent my hazard game. Thievul had a couple of fantastic matchups, both with Unburden and Stakeout. Lapras, key defensive answer in certain matchups. Kangaskhan, huge bulky presence that was a threat. Aromatisse maybe being kind of the one disappointment on the team, only coming 4 times. But then again, when it did come, it was a key special wall. Even in this match here, the number 1 answer to Moltres Scholar. So all in all, fantastic season for the Newport Noctowls, and great team, and nothing here that stands out as anything that really didn't carry its weight.
Well, the important thing is that we do not have another back-to-back-to-back champion, so that title is safe with the Bouffalant. The Noctowls, though, quickly becoming maybe the best team in the league. Maybe one more season just like this and could end up dethroning the Bouffalant, who haven't won in a little bit. Noctowls looked like the number 1 threat, but knocked out by the Steamrollers, who once again proving that they can make the finals in any given season. 7 out of the 10 seasons with the Steamrollers in the finals. That is absolutely crazy. Even with a season like this is the second time Chad's made the finals as a 6th seed. Think about that one for a little bit. But of course, there was another semifinals match, and while this one was a grudge match from Season 8's finals, this one was a match between brothers here. Not the traditional brothers, because we do have them in the league, but rather the partners in the semifinals from just last season, the Burbs and the Wobbuffets. Steve, this is your partner, your friend. Tell us about how you were able to break down this matchup as you prepared for the semifinals.
Yeah, so preparing for this matchup, I was a little worried. I know you have said it time and time again that the most difficult match in Draft League is the rematch that you had previously won, and I was definitely feeling the effects here. Having previously won this match, I wanted to keep things kind of the same, but predict enough of what he was going to change to stay ahead. Looking at the matchup here, my big 3 of Chandelure, Sharpedo, and Virizion all look very good. Chandelure of having that unresisted Ghost Stab, with the exception of Liepard, which, with how frail it is, not really a resist. So, of course, Shadow Ball's very easy. Sharpedo having just Vaporeon to worry about with its Water Stab, but otherwise tearing through the rest of the team. A lot of these offensive pieces, of course, going down. And Virizion, fantastic Mon here, outspeeding most of the team, with the exception of the Lycanroc and the Raichu. Raichu, it's not all that worried about unless he brings the physical Raichu with Play Rough again. And Lycanroc, again, hits me on the frailer physical side, but doesn't really have an easy answer to secure a KO. In the meantime, Virizion able to threaten out the Vaporeon with Leaf Blade, threaten the Charizard with Stone Edge, do massive damage to the Gallade and Flygon with the stabs. Fantastic Mon for the matchup. So all 3 of them look great. Outside of them, the Piloswine bringing the ice coverage as additional answer to the Flygon looks pretty good. Additionally, bringing the priority on both in the form of Ice Shard on Piloswine and or Aqua Jet on Sharpedo looks useful. Michael's team is, in general, faster than mine, especially worrying about the Lycanroc that outspeeds my whole team, the Raichu who Speed Tizer outspeeds my whole team, as well as the possibility of bringing Sticky Web on Shuckle to slow down my whole team. I, of course, have Sticky Web as an option to myself. However, didn't opt for it, didn't feel it was worthwhile enough, and his hazard removal seemed plenty enough to keep any webs I would set up away. Archeops would have been an interesting bring here, able to bring Defog, as well as provide flying coverage, great answer to Gallade offensively, rock coverage for Charizard. Really, really strong Mon, and would probably bring my 7th bring if there were. Licky, great defensive piece, very useful, especially against Charizard, being able to have Cloud9 to shut down any potential Sun boosts, take hits with ease, and then retaliate with a Rock Slide for most of Charizard's health. So yeah, really, really good options there. On the side of the Burbs, looking at it, Vaporeon's been a bring all season for him. Great defensive piece. Really have to watch out for that. Biggest thing with Vaporeon is all of my answers to Scald don't like getting burned, with the exception of, I guess, Licky Licky. So really have to watch out for that. Outside of that, his offensive brings, I mentioned particularly worrying about Sun Boosted Charizard. Flygon, last time we brought a defensive set, although with Piloswine, I'm not too worried about it. Lycanroc, of course, outspeeding my whole team and having that rock-type coverage to hit my big threats is worrisome. Kind of scares me away from potentially running a Choice Scarf from Chandelure, as the Cell Rock is just an easy click into Chandelure. So need to look for alternatives there. Mentioned the Shuckle earlier, and in general, the Hazard game. Hazard removal is definitely one of my weakest attributes, with only Archeops and Trampa with Defog. So Webs and Rocks could be quite annoying to deal with if he's able to get them up. As part of that, though, his team has a couple of mons that are just taunt bait. Shuckle, Amara, and Vaporeon even, a lot of them favoring those status moves. So last time definitely brought some taunt, and this time doing the same, looking to bring taunt to shut down some of these options here. Gallade is a really interesting mon of the matchup. Hits really well, don't have a good answer to physical fighting moves with the exception of Chandelure. Of course, Chandelure can easily go down to Gallade coverage moves as well, then I have to worry about a speed tie. So really not a great defensive answer to Gallade, although lots of my members are able to revenge it. Chandelure, of course, coming in, able to probably take one hit and KO with a Shadow Ball. Sharpedo with its Dark Stab able to do well and is able to outspeed naturally and protect for a speed boost there. Virizion able to hit the frailer physical defensive Gallade with the Stab Leaf Blade, probably after a close combat doing enough to KO. So lots of options there to revenge kill, but not so much for the switch in. But all in all, interesting matchup. Do you have any other comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, it just really seems like once one member from each team goes down, then it opens up so much more. Right, you mentioned how good Sharpedo looks if Vaporeon goes down. Maybe Virision's the best answer to that. So maybe if that goes down, Vaporeon is just able to take over the game, kind of. So very cool to see. Maybe a one hole gets punched and the whole game could potentially open up. And so interested to see what kind of counterplay each of you are able to come up with for something that could be a very swingy matchup. I know a lot of Michael's games tend to be kind of slow in the beginning as Vaporeon wishes around and passes in order to get the correct setup. So we'll see when things start going down, they're going to go down. And with that said, we're going to go into the battle itself. Alrighty, here we go. Turn 1, favor to the light part of all things against the Chandelure. Knock off the Colbur, but gets the Flame Body burn. But Fire Blast misses. That could be a big deal. Lumberry cures the first Thunder Wave onto Virizion, but the second goes through before KOing the light part. As you said, Licky Licky is the Charizard answer and Heal Bell's up. The Virizion Chandelure is the Shuckle answer, but the webs do go up. That's a big deal. Shuckle gets taunted by the Candelabra, but Bulldoze, very cute answer. Keep seeing unique, fun things on the Shuckle. Licky Licky able to get the Toxic off on it, but a follow-up knock onto the Gallade is trouble. As instead, get the shoes on the other foot with Justified activating against Steve. Rocky Helmet Escavalier gets a third onto it, but just goes down anyways. Shuckle eats the response, but goes down to close combat from Virizion, which once again lets in the Gallade, who now for sure outspeeds the Candelure to KO with the knock off. Piloswine the answer for the second time and does over half to Vaporeon, but the Water Dog outspeeds Steve's investment and Flip turns out into the Charizard, who hits not one, but two Focus Blasts to KO a very healthy Licky Licky. Big hits there. Sharpedo has to then tank another Air Slash, going down to 2% after Life Orb Recoil, but does KO the Charizard. And then a great play from Michael, Flip turning out into Gallade to grab most of Virision's health so it can go down to a Fire Fang from Lycanroc. Playing chicken a little bit, 2 protects get Sharpedo fast enough to outspeed with an Aqua Jet, but predicts Vaporeon to come in the 2v2 and gets outsped by Accelerock before Lycanroc then also takes down Piloswine as well, to claim the second upset victory of the semifinals. We've got a 4 seed versus a 6 seed as Michael makes his first finals appearance with the Burbs. Another outstanding close match. A couple things maybe not going your way. The Focus Blast, of course, hitting twice, maybe missing the Fire Blast was a big deal. What do you think about the match? What do you think it came down to?
I mean, yeah, you mentioned a couple RNG elements, and I think we both can relate to the statement that RNG sucks, huh? Both kind of going out to situations that with a bit different RNG could be different. I think the big thing in this battle was under-preparing for Sticky Web. With the Shuckle able to get it up and myself not having removal, just perpetually being at even more of a speed disadvantage was really rough. Virizion, is a fantastic answer and is able to outspeed a lot of things naturally. But after the webs, gets outsped by the Gallade, the Charizard, and, its usefulness goes a lot down. But yeah, that was the big thing. And then, just a couple things, predictions going the wrong way. Really compile things. And then, even at the end, playing a little bit of predictions games, although it probably wouldn't have mattered, especially with the Vaporeon outspeeding the Piloswine and likely KOing in one hit with the Scald anyways. So all in all, fantastic game. Out-predicted me in certain cases, got a little bit of help from RNG, but, a deserved win to Michael and the Birderbs, making their finals debut, I believe.
I believe that is true, yeah. And off the back of some interesting monsters, Shuckle just coming again with a unique set. Like you had predicted, the Gallade putting in a ton of work, Charizard putting in work. Very, very interesting that he's able to kind of get a different star every week, as opposed to perhaps the end of the Wobbuffet season means we need to highlight your team a little bit. Everything was built around Chandelure, and Chandelure, as of right now, it sure is the kill leader. Do you think that worked out? How do you think about your season overall?
Honestly, I thought it was a very successful season. You mentioned the Chandelure being brought to all my matches. It was a key piece for me and was always able to do something. And of course, being the KO leader and the kill death leader at 16-3, fantastic mon. Of course, only going down 3 times, and I lost. How many? 3 matches? That is an interesting coincidence there. That and Virizion both being great offensive pieces. Virizion coming quite frequently and is able to put in a lot of work. The speed tier of Virizion, along with the grass fighting and then Stone Edge usually coverage, really hits a lot of things, especially in the lower tiers, quite hard. There's not any of those bulky, I guess, steel flying types that would give it trouble available. So really strong there. Sharpedo at 100, similar to what I said about Aerodactyl for you, its presence was likely felt by the opponent and forces some team building, but it never was able to come in and take charge and kind of save a battle. Was never able to use it either kind of in the mid-game effectively. It came close once, however, against the Noctowls. However, against them, of course, Extreme Speed was able to take it at the end. So the Sharpedo really maybe a little underwhelming and also a little predictable. It was a question of whether to bring physical or special each week, but the power really wasn't there without a life orb, speed boost and protect, kind of mandatory. So a little predictable, but was able to do some cleanup sometimes. The defensive pieces in the Scavalier, Piloswine, and Licky Licky were fantastic, kind of complementing each other, although there is a little bit of a weakness to fighting, which I talked about, especially discussing how Gallade would rip through my team if given the chance. But yeah, Piloswine great, able to bring a lot of physical bulk and or physical offense on occasion. Scavalier, fantastic mon, Bug Steel, great typing. Really wish it had better recovery than Rest, but Rest works out for it, able to wall what it needs to and threaten out, especially this fairy types that are quite good with its Steel Stab. Licky Licky, kind of the glue of the team, being able to wish pass and provide other cleric roles. Also, great unique coverage. In this last match, looking at it gets Power Whip. Of course, without heavy investment, Power Whip wasn't going to do a ton of Vaporeon anyways. But really unique mon. Lots of options there. Just doesn't quite have the offense to pull out. But if you're looking for hitting something with a 4 times weakness, it probably has the coverage move you're looking for. Archeops is great. The speed and the power it brings, it of course does have to watch out because it is only good when it is at above half health. It does get Roost to kind of mitigate that. It was one of my defoggers, which was key. But all in all, it had lots to do and pretty frail, but great at what it was doing. Drampa, a little bit of a disappointment. Really hard to bring it effectively. I really like the prospect of getting Berserk boost while healing up with Roost, setting up Calm Mind, but it just didn't have the physical bulk to match, and what always, with its low speed, would be an easy revenge away. Outside in the 20s, highlight is definitely Chargebug the couple times it came. Being a fighting resist was very useful for my team, and the web support always appreciated. And it's always fun to, let the bus go wild on occasion. But yeah, in general, I thought it was a pretty successful season for me. Just, came of course a little short.
It's still nice to see a bit of a return to form after Season 8, being down at the 6 or 7 seed there, being back near the top. As remember, the number 1 seed multiple times after the regular season. Looks like you are back to stay. But of course, with all these teams eliminated, we're down to only 2. The number 4 seed Route 1 Burbs, as we said, making their finals debut against the number 6 seed Seattle Steamrollers, the potentially most seasoned veteran here, 7 out of 10 finals appearances. We're hopefully go a little bit more in depth for that finals matchup next time, potentially speak with the coaches, do a little bit more homework on some of the past here, and see if we can get you the hardest hitting news about the finals. Thanks, Steve, for joining me, and we'll see you in the final video for Season 10 coming up next time the finals are here.